does it with you too. Is she actually does push you in a very loving, gentle way, but there's some strength behind that. Like it's not a very passive strength. Like she's like, you better do it or else kind of thing. But yeah, you want to be aligned with people like her. So I'm glad that we can connect too. So I'm excited too for this episode.
Absolutely. And on that note, I feel like you recognize that quality in her because it's
Hmm.
probably a quality that you embody when you work with your clients. And so I'd love to transition and hear about you and your story and how you got into what is on your website as holistic fitness, which I just thought was so interesting. It like that really it piqued my interest in many ways. I used to be in the fitness space. I really love and appreciate holistic approaches to things. So I was like, "Oh my gosh, tell me all the things. Who are you? What's your story? How did you get here today?"
Well, my name is Jedd Ramos, and I've been in this industry for the past 13 years. It's interesting how I got into this space. It's really weird because if I had to think about it, it really started from an injury in high school. I was actually on the wrestling team and I got injured. And then I had to see this guy. I didn't know what he was, but he basically had me do all these different things to get better. And I was just super fascinated with this process. Like he's making me do like ice therapy and he's stretching me and he's making me do all these other weird things. But then I got better. I'm like, man, and being in athletics and sports is very exciting. Like, I want to be in this atmosphere full of energy and just be around people like that, but at the same time, help them get better. So that's what I want to do. And later on, I found out he was an athletic trainer, but then I thought it was physical therapy. So I went to school for physical therapy thinking that's what I was going to do. And there's all these subdivisions of physical therapy, and I was like, maybe I just want to work with people that just get physically hurt. I don't want to deal with older people and whatever. I just want to work with athletes. But then this thing came about. It was a new program, like KCC, Pualena Community College. It was called Exercise and Sports Science, and I was like, you know what, like I actually want to do that. Like I don't want to just help people that got hurt. Like I actually want to think about, and luckily, I was a forward thinker back then. I thought about, I just want to help people not get hurt in the first place. So prevention. So what better way than to do exercise, right? And exercise is not just this one thing, which I'll talk about later. So I got into that program and I'm like, I kind of fell in love with it and I fell in love with the people in it. And that's when I met my mentor, who's still my mentor today, to reach a very high level of rigor in the field. And that's when I got my first degree in exercise and sports science. And basically the rest is history from there. Then I went on to get another degree at UH Manoa. It was in kinesiology and rehabilitation sciences. And then I studied stuff like strength and conditioning, biomechanics, exercise physiology, both applied and clinical, sports nutrition, even behavioral health, as far as the behavior aspects of physical fitness. And I just kept going and going, the snowballing effect of just really learning, being this, active bookworm, getting all the knowledge I can to really invest myself in the field because I care about it that much. Like I really want to learn everything at a very deep level so I can better understand that. But then for me to take that and use it and share it with people so then I can add value to them. It's not for my sake, to share this knowledge, this education that I've learned for many years and apply it to the people that I get to serve every day. And at that point I was getting side jobs and side gigs as far as working like for the YMCA. I worked for the Y for 8.5 years. And that was kind of like a perfect breeding ground to really test everything I've learned from children as young as 4 years old to senior citizens to as old as 99 years old. And
Wow.
I basically tell people that today, like if you're between the ages of 4 and 99, I can train you, I can coach you, I can help you. So that's mostly everybody except babies and people that are, well, I never tried someone over 100. I'm willing to do that. But anyway, so like that was a perfect breeding grounds to really learn more and do more, not just to be book smart, but to be street smart too. We can be very smart and memorize everything and recollect things just like that and regurgitate it into an exam and get a very high, you know, grade point average. But at the end of the day is what you use that, like Bruce Lee says that like knowing is not enough, we must apply. Like willing is not enough, we must do. So like when we do that and we apply it, then it has much more power. So that's the reason why I gained all this experience for the past 13 years. I worked with doctors, medical professionals, allopathic doctors, osteopathic doctors, naturopathic doctors, and all the professionals underneath, nurses, physical therapists, sports nutritionists, registered dietitians, radiologists, behavioral therapists, etc. And what happens is they become clients of mine. I train their patients, but at the same time, we learn from each other, which is great. There's more knowledge, more education now, learning about stuff like supranuclear palsy and dementia and Parkinson's and just injuries, different kinds of injuries of all kinds and medical conditions. And it really led me to the point to where, fitness is not just this thing that we see in mainstream media. It's not what we see in social media. It's not what we see once we step outside to big boxes and studios and boutiques, all these places. It's not that. Fitness is actually a state. And once you take a deeper dive in what fitness is, it's a state and a condition of being. So, three examples is one, being fit is being able to survive. So that's where they have survival of the fittest, right? Can you survive in your environment? Two is just, is it a good fit? Meaning like being able to handle a task or a position that you're in, like being a good fit for a job, being a good fit for this task that I need you to do, right? And then the other one is fit, meaning procreation and being able to continue your generations to come, being fit to reproduce and continue your legacy, through the children that you're going to have. So what we do in exercise is we use that as a tool instead of like maybe life insurance or being a mechanic or being in like a janitor. You're doing this service to help increase a quality of life in people that helps them to be fit to live a life that they're meant to live. So part of my slogan is that we do life-changing fitness, right? We offer life-changing fitness that creates limitless transformations. So fitness can be used as a tool to help actually save lives. And I've learned that early in my career. And that was really the catalyst that really changed everything. And it was a paradigm shift to now I'm not just doing this as a profession because I was interested in it because I got injured in high school. In 2002, I'm sorry, 2011 or 12, that's totally off. I had a client that, I trained her. She had a whole host of issues with her. Before her, it was just like working out, losing weight, looking good, optimizing athleticism, being the best that you can be. And then I come with this client. She has all these long lists of conditions and things wrong with her, long list of stuff. And I didn't feel qualified to train her. And at the end, the kicker was that she was a nurse. And I was like, I thought nurses were healthy. I thought they were because they're in the health field. Her goal was just to walk around Magic Island once. I mean, if you tell people what that goal is outside, they're going to be like, so what? I can do that.
For
But for
those
her,
of
it
you
meant
who
the
aren't
world.
familiar with that space, it's maybe a mile.
Yeah, yeah.
About that, maybe less. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about a mile and a half. So her goal was just to walk around it once and enjoy it and not for it to be a struggle. So, I worked with her for 3 months. Making a very long story short, we achieved our goal and she told me she was able to walk around it 3 times.
Mm.
And she was extremely emotional. She gave me a handwritten card. She gave me a gift and she gave it to me personally. And she told me face to face that you saved my life. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. And that's when it really changed. I'm like, okay, this is much more than what I thought it would be. And that's when it all started. And I started to think about it's not just the modern science that I've studied for many years. It's not the science I've learned from the collaborations I've had with all these medical professionals. There's got to be something more to it. There's the behavioral aspect of it, and there's this part called the ancestral wisdom part of it that we tend to
Mm.
forget. So that's why in my website, like you saw, I blend or fuse modern science with ancestral wisdom. These are things that we've forgotten for many years, decades, and or we care not to think about them because we think it's this hippie woo-woo concept. but it has everything to do with what we do today. So whether you're a fitness professional or even just an average person that just wants to live life, especially if you're an entrepreneur, there are a lot of things that we can do when we take the best of both and blend them. And then that's when I create customized coaching and personalized programs for each individual for my clients today. That's kind of like the rough story to it. Besides, I have underlying motivational and driven sources of energy that gets me going every day, that pushes me to do this with passion and loving what I do every day, because that's part of my mission in life. So like me as a human being, my mission in life is to be a servant, is to be a servant of the world, and for me to add value, like I had mentioned, to each person by sharing my knowledge, my skills, my abilities, my gifts, my talents with them. And hopefully that adds value to them. And at the end of the day, it has some impact on their life, because we want to be here for impact. Like we need to have a purpose. Like in Kaizen Fitness, we talk about your ikigai. Your ikigai is your why. Your why do you exist? Why do you get up in the morning? What's your purpose in life? And so my job is to help them find that as well, or rediscover it or respark it. And that at that point, at the very end of this life, my end goal is for everyone to live a very high quality of life, whatever that may be for them. And there's a holistic approach to that. So, and that's why I'm here. Kaizen Fitness is all about holistic fitness, where we take every component of health. So whether it's health related or skill related components of fitness, and then we talk about all these other dimensions of health, which is important to the client, and that can ram the gamut. Like some people say there's like 8, there's 10, there's 12. Like, there's other things like social health, there's mental health, there's financial health, there's career, there's all these other dimensions of health, and we explore those things together. And I'm not an expert. Like I'm not a business consultant like Arliss. I'm not a financial advisor, but I understand how that plays in the puzzle of life that we deal with every day. And that's my job. And it's just for me, at the end of the day, when I do my job, it's not a job. It's a passion. It's not work to me. Uh, my days go by really fast. And, at the end of this day, too, when you go to bed, you should be able to answer 3 questions. One, did I live? Two, did I love? Three, did I matter? So if you're able to do that to a full extent, then I think that was a good day, and then you just repeat that every day and just keep going as long as you can with energy, vitality, and just good vibes. Like I always talk, to people. So that was pretty long. That was a long answer,
That
huh?
was awesome. No, I love, there's so many things there that I want to make sure that we touch on, because you're very well rounded. Shall I say holistic? Like you not only, and what I really appreciate is you've learned from every aspect of the spectrum. You have deep scientific and academic achievements and experience. You also understand the sort of spiritual, holistic side of this. You understand the physiological side of this, the anatomic, is that a word? Anatomical?
Anatomical.
Anatomical. Thank you.
You got it. You had it. You had it.
Yeah. Like it's interesting because I think a lot of people sort of choose one side or the other. They want to be very, very science based. Okay, this is the stuff that works. These are the journals that prove that this works. Here's all the data. Or this is very, I'm going to use the term woo. I need people to know that I'm very woo, so I don't use it in a bad way. But just like, intuition and spirituality, and like oftentimes those don't necessarily play together. And I love that you believe in, utilize, and promote both, because I think it's all part of the reality that we live in. And to be able to serve people from this space of, the way that we live life now is a very recent development. Sitting at
Mm-hmm.
a desk for 12 hours a day sometimes is not how we as humans were, it's not really what we were meant to do. Perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
who knows what we were meant to
Mm-hmm.
do, but we sure didn't live like that not too long ago. And so I
Mm-hmm.
love that you bring in also that ancestral knowledge and the ways that we have moved our bodies as we go back through generations and generations, and bringing that to the forefront so that we can sort of bridge that gap instead of
Hmm.
saying, like, we as humans are supposed to do this. Like,
Yeah.
you're sitting into the evolution and sort of melding it together. So I'd love to
Hmm.
chat about what that looks like and how you work with your clients who, like, let's talk about both ends of the spectrum. Maybe you have clients
Hmm.
who are very sedentary, who maybe haven't done anything since high school PE. And
Hmm.
then maybe you have clients who they're professional athletes, or maybe they just want to be competitive as they continue through their adult years in, martial arts or like community
Hmm.
soccer, whatever that is. Yeah, let's dig into both of those.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, that's the age range, right? So it does encompass the sedentary, and then it encompasses the high performer. Um, I was actually an assistant strength and conditioning coach at UH. I was part of a Division 1 strength and conditioning program for about a year and a half, and that really like opened my eyes to more possibilities on how I train people. And it was a very very intense time. Shout out to anyone listening that was in that group. You know who you are. It really helped me to sharpen my knives and actually find a different way to train clients outside of that realm.
Hmm.
Uh, and when I was thinking about like this thing called the periodization method, where you basically plan out the entire year for each athlete from day one to the last day. And I was like, why can't I just apply that to everyone else? So what I did is I took that method and I use it for all my clients now. But especially for the sedentary, we, or specifically me, I always meet people where they're at. I meet them where they're at and I speak their language. So even though I'm very scientific and evidence based, you gotta use plain English because that's what people really care about. And you know that quote about like people don't know much, they really don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. So if
Mm,
you're gonna just talk a lot of scientific jargon to them and just passes them, it's like who cares? All I care
that's a
about is you
brilliant
helping me.
marketing strategy as well. Like when we're talking, sorry, I don't mean
Yeah.
to interrupt you. I just want to highlight this because whether you're in fitness or not, you
Hmm.
have language that you use every day in your expertise in your industry, and to
Hmm.
use that language that you use every day to talk to
Hmm.
your potential clients is doing you a huge disservice because they don't understand it yet. So I'm
Yeah,
I'm so glad
exactly.
that you brought that up.
Yeah, you got to meet them where they're at. You got to speak their language. And the number one thing that separates me from everyone else is that I deeply listen. Like I listen. I let them talk. You'd be surprised too. I mean, a lot of professionals will talk too much and ask too much, unless they have to. But then let the let them talk. So, like for the sedentary client, like the first step I always do is I have an initial consultation with all of my potential clients, and that's always complimentary. There's no charge for that, and it's just a conversation. It's like how we're talking now. Like this could be a consultation, but we're just talking, talk story, very casually. But I do have a list of questions that I ask that are very important for me to know, for me to take a deeper dive in each person that I talk to. And it's that holistic approach. I talk about and ask questions about these different areas of their life so I can kind of paint a broad picture of who I'm talking to. And I listen to what their needs are, and then I then get to the next step, which is the initial fitness assessment process, where I actually assess their fitness level currently, like wherever they're at now. And it doesn't have to be at an astronomical level of fitness. Like you could be like very bare bones, bottom of the barrel fitness level, like completely sedentary with a ton of health issues, which obviously happen,
Do
and
you ever get people who say, I need to be a little bit more active before I work with you?
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I get that all the time, but then when is that going to happen?
Right. How do you
you
address
know,
that? We used to get that at the gym too that I worked at, where people would say, like, I would talk to them like, oh my gosh, you should come to a class. It's so fun. There's so much support and it's all fitness levels. And they go, okay, well, let me start working out first and then I'll come. And I was like, hold on. Yes. What do you
yeah.
say to that?
It actually varies. It really does vary person to person, but it's like, no, let's get started now because then let's see where you're at. Let's get you moving together. because we
I
just
love
want to
that.
make sure that we take proactive action now because we don't want to wait for tomorrow. Because at that point we're just trying to see if we can get all of our ducks in a row before we actually take massive action. But I believe in
Right.
imperfect action. Let's take imperfect action. Let's just delve into it. Like if for the class part, that's kind of tough because you shouldn't just dive into a class, even though it says all fitness levels are welcome. You want to make sure your body is prepared, knowing proper form and technique, proper breathing techniques, proper biomechanics, and just to have the body a little conditioned based on the class. It just depends on the class. But if it's like a low intensity type of class, yeah, dive in, go in, because you want to be able to do things with other people. We're human beings. We love to do things together in groups and numbers, and we're greater in numbers, whether we like it or not. So I would actually promote it depending on the class. Like, you should dive in, but regardless of which way you want to take action now. Like, let's do stuff now. And when I create programs for the client, we do it. We start from the very bottom from where they're at, and we progressively go up. And we call that a linear progression.
Mm.
And it doesn't have to be this astronomical rise. Like, it doesn't take 30 days. It's not 60 days. It's not 90 days, like what we were led to believe. Progress is very progressive, like the tortoise and the hare. It really has. I heard that recently. That's why I brought it up. But it's really small steps, small, slow steps toward where you want to be. And that's progress. And we want to be able to maintain that for a lifetime. So if you have a routine now that you're doing, and if you ask the question, can I do these things or this thing when I'm 80, 90 years old? And if it's no, you actually shouldn't be doing it for very
Mm.
long. But plan for that. Do things that you know for sure you can do in your 70s, 80s, 90s, right? But you just take them where they're at, and let's work together to slowly build you up properly based on the goals that we talked about, based on the assessments that we just did, and let's go to this point. And then we take it from there. From here, then let's get to the next step. So it's a very progressive thing. It takes time, and at the same time, we have fun. Really, we just have a good time. I make it as enjoyable as possible, because the truth is, this stuff is not fun. It's not easy. It takes long, but that's the only path to success. It's like, even in entrepreneurship, we can't just expect explosive growth, like having
Mm-hmm.
thousands of followers on TikTok on day one, and now you're a celebrity. But then thereafter, how long can you maintain that? And what are you going to get from that besides just double clicks and double taps and hearts and
Yeah.
thumbs ups? But like, we have to make sure that we're taking our time and knowing that it does take time, but we can still have a good time doing it. And that's my job too. I make it a very unique experience for each client. Everyone's experience is different. So for that sedentary person, maybe they need more nurturing. Maybe they need more empathy. Maybe they need a little bit more loving discipline, as opposed to a high performing athlete. Then that I kind of have like this Jekyll Hyde thing that happens, where you're like when I do strength and conditioning, then Mr. Hyde comes out. But luckily, it's all about control. Like, it's just the energy. It has to change. The language has to change. When you talk to them, sometimes profanity comes out, but we only do that because you want to get their attention. But that's
Like
not
Tony
something I do with
Robbins
the
and his
center.
state changes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That guy is bananas. Like, he's crazy. But not. But no. I listen to him too, and I've always admired him for forever. But yeah, it's really just changing your language, changing how you approach each client, whether they're sedentary or a senior or an athlete, and you just speak their language. It's like any other relationship, if you think about it. Like when you have conversations with your significant other, or if you talk to a 6-year-old, and then you talk to a person that's not from here. They're probably from the mainland. You got to change how you talk, right? So it's really about communication. I think that's the key point.
That's
So
beautiful. And I love your approach to coaching where you probably have somewhat of a formula for that long-term transformation, but depending on who it is, what their experience is, what their
mm,
goals are, you as a coach and any coaches listening, if you listen and you actively listen and you truly listen instead of pretend to listen and sit there and nod your head, you
mm,
get cues that you can then utilize to provide the transformation that's appropriate for that person. I love that you
exactly.
said that. It's so key. And I'm curious if you do just one-on-one coaching, or do you do anything on groups or anything online?
I basically do it all. From a framework standpoint, one, I do in-person training, so it's called mobile training. So I'll basically go to you. I'll go to your house, the park, the beach, your backyard, driveway, garage, any place that has space, and I bring and provide everything that you need. If you don't have any equipment or anything, I'll provide that. Saves a lot of time, very convenient. It saves gas, saves stress, finding parking, sitting in traffic, especially King Street or, or Beretania, like just saves a lot of time. The other one is online training. So I train online. So I have a fitness app that I use. It's a very simple app, which I deliver the workouts and our programs. And then I do weekly check-ins with them. But then if they want to tack on like a live training, which is like via Zoom, then we can tack that on too. And it's completely virtual. And then the third one is hybrid training, where it's a mix of both. So I have clients that I train in person, but if they happen to travel and you're going to be away for a while, then I train them online. So I just switch up the mode, and then I train them from afar. And then when they come back, it's back to in person. So very, very convenient, very time efficient, and very worth your time. And, the way I do it is, like for each person, uh, the programs just vary so much. Like it could be just plain workouts, but there are other things I would ask them to do, like maybe going for a walk. Going for a walk 5 minutes a day, making a journal entry on at least three things you're grateful for. Or I might have them do a breath work session. Things like box breathing. Or I might tell them to do some grounding and earthing, which is part of that ancestral living part. Go for a walk in the sunshine, breathe the fresh air. Maybe do it barefoot if it's not too hot, and ground yourself in the
Mm.
earth. Go to the beach, go into the ocean water, dig your feet into the sand. All these things. Go for a forest walk. Like we don't really have forests, but you can walk amongst trees. But, those are things I can add into the program, you know. But besides that, I train one on one, I train couples, so two people, I train small groups between 3 to 5 people. I do group instruction, so it could be from 15 to 25 people, and I do corporate wellness too. So I can train companies. Whether you're a nonprofit, for profit, private, it doesn't matter. So I'll train basically 1 to 50 clients at one time. So I basically do it all.
Amazing. That is awesome. Okay, so as you are on the Course Creators Academy podcast, a lot of our audience are sort of trying to do what you've achieved, where they do one-on-one coaching. It may not be fitness, maybe life coaching, business coaching, and they want to expand for several reasons, right? Like you can only really take so many one-on-one clients before you have to
Mm-hmm.
clone yourself, which until that becomes an option, we then have to find other ways. So a lot of the questions that I get asked are, how do you, okay, so with a one-on-one client,
Mm-hmm.
it's very hands-on. You get to know them, you understand who they are, what motivates
Mm-hmm.
them, what their challenges are, why they feel stuck, how to overcome that. You learn about them as you work together. And that
Mm-hmm.
transformation, the result that they're looking for is, that's top of mind for you when you're working with them. And when
Mm-hmm.
people begin the sort of online course creation process or even group coaching, one of the concerns is that because it's such a unique process, that they can't just guarantee the same transformation for everybody that wants to join virtually. How
Mm-hmm.
do you sort of, do you have any channels in place to measure progress, to provide support for the people who are online or even in the groups?
Yep. So again, like the app, it's a very very basic app where I can actually track like what they're doing, especially historically, whether it's the actual fitness part of it, workouts, the behavioral stuff, the ancestral part. I can actually see their progress. Some people, and quite honestly, it's kind of weird. Like in my profession, in my many years, a lot of people don't really look for the stats. Like I tell them, I offer, hey, I can graph your stats. Like you can visually see your progress and whatnot. But they're like, for the majority, at least for my clientele, all they care about is just how they feel day to day.
Mm,
And I just take notes. Like I take copious notes with every client every single time I train them, every time I coach them. So I do have a historical reference of their journey, but that's part of why I want them to journal too, so they have their own record of their own progress, and that's very personal to them. But it's just the system is actually, I'm speaking of that, I'm actually working on a program right now. It's still under construction to where I can offer this to people virtually, where it's a very, like you said, a holistic program. I'm pretty sure there are similar ones out there, but again, I'm me, and Kaizen Fitness is one, and I'm a local company here in Hawaii, so there's only that I can go by as the only one so far in Hawaii, and it's going to be different. It's going to be unique, and from that point, then we can have it in cohorts where we have a group of people of maybe 5 6 people, and that in itself will be the accountability to make sure
mm,
people stay on track and help push and motivate each other to be its own support group. And obviously I'm going to be there to facilitate that. But as far as just keeping track of progress, like I said, I keep copious notes. I have data sheets that when I do like the assessment and the consult, I have that. And then I have the app to visually see their progress in real time with their notes and my notes. And from there, we just reference back every 3 to 5. Well, we do cycles. We do macrocycles, mesocycles, and microcycles. So like every 3 months, we'll definitely check in and see how far they've come, to see where they're at. And if we have to give it a number, we'll give it a number. So like not everything is proven in science, but just give a very subjective number that they can give it, like 1 to 10. 1 is bad, 10 is good. So like we'll just keep track of that during the check-ins. Every 1 or 2 months we check in also, just the progress report. And then the microscopic is like every other day maybe, or 2 or 3 times a week. I check in on them. Hey, how's it going? How are you feeling? And those little details really do matter to the client. So it's like, man, yeah, he really does care about me. Like he texts me like twice this week, and like he really wants to know how I'm doing. So for me, that's how, as far as like metrics go. But for them, it's like just them feeling like they're being held accountable and feeling supported on a regular daily/weekly basis is usually their measurement of like progress, which we keep track of.
absolutely. I love that. And you said something earlier that I want to bring back, that communication is key. And for
Hmm.
people to feel supported, we often just need to communicate with them, right?
Yep.
Send an email, ask how they're doing. A lot of times when we put programs together for our clients, we will suggest some sort of email automation. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's automated. I'm not personally sending it every time. However, it's meant to bring awareness back to the situation,
Yep.
and the client can respond to it. That response will come to us. We can answer the
Hmm.
questions, right? So I
Yep.
love that you said that, and that's built into the things that you offer. And I'm really excited to see what you're putting together. Let's keep in touch. And yeah, I'd,
Yes.
I'd be stoked to help you share that once it's ready.
Yes. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. It's my first one. So it's and actually that's Arliss's fault. So
Her ears
yeah,
must be ringing today.
I know, or she's sneezing. Like you sneeze, like, oh, someone's talking to about me right now. So that's
So
I'm gonna
funny.
text her after. It's like,
Right.
hope you weren't sneezing earlier. Yeah, but yeah, I mean that's the plan. I mean there are other things that I'm working on too, which is really cool, and it's new for me because then I'm really starting to branch out, which is really good that I'm on here. Is really just like spreading the word is part of it, communicating with the public, because I used to be very to myself and wanted to just be this philanthropic type entity where I didn't really want to be put out there, and I would just let word of mouth do its thing. But given the way our society is right now, it's just tough, especially post pandemic. Like, we really want to be out there because no one's going to know about me and what I have to offer unless I get out there. And part of that's being visible. So, being visible on social media and just using it properly, not being an influencer, but just to be more out there, doing podcasts, being part of workshops, and being part of business groups, and, like doing a lot of collaborations, which is key for me, being, whether it's dream house, private public charter school in Eva Beach, or with the Blue Zones Project Hawaii, which I'm a community partner with, or just even small local businesses around. Like I can mention a number of them right now. But collaborating with people to better serve people in their communities too, not just like mine, but in like the chiropractic space, or the bioenergetic phase, or like the naturopathic phase, or like just these different communities you can get into to be more visible, and to better help them, and to just talk, just talk about, share information, teach, educate people, get into work sites, community sites, school sites, and just like teach our kids. Let's teach our kupuna. Let's teach our fellow, kamaaina, and just, spread the word, because, knowledge is power, right? At least for the beginning. And then we get to the action part later. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like the workshop, the project for this program is another way for me to do that.
I love that. You keep like dropping nuggets that they are very relevant for you and what you do, and they're also just really great bits of advice for any entrepreneur. Is like,
Hmm.
be visible, allow yourself. I'm the same. Like, I would so much rather be behind the camera, not in front of it. Like, I don't want to talk about myself. I don't want to post about myself. Just let the people come. Just quietly let yourself achieve success. It's not how it works. It's
Yeah.
the more visible we can be, the more we can serve. And I think when we continue to think of it that way, it stops feeling like it's about your ego, and it starts feeling about like it's about service. And that's, I think, what most of us want. So I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like my two mentors tell me two different things. Once told me that ego is not your amigo,
Mm, it's
so you
true.
have to let that go. The other thing is that, well, you say you want to do all these things worldly, you want to save the world, right? But how can you save the world if the world doesn't know you exist?
Good point. I
So
tell that to people when they want to start, like, oh, I want to write a book. I want to start a podcast. I'm like, cool, do it. They're like, yeah, yeah,
do
yeah,
it.
okay, when I'm
Yeah.
ready. And I'm like, okay, well, what's stopping you from starting that process right now? And they go, I just want to make sure that it's good, or that people will get value from it, or maybe I need to learn more first before I do it. And I was like, well, guess how many people are getting value from your podcast now?
Hmm.
Zero, because it doesn't exist. So if you launch it and you talk to you have one listener, you've helped one person, whereas right now you're helping none. So get it
Yeah.
out there. Perfect it
Yeah,
along the way.
exactly. Exactly. Like I said, like we have this defense mechanism in our brain that wants to keep us safe, whether it's safe from scrutiny, or negative feedback, or criticism from people. It's like, well, I want to make sure, like, like you just said, right? It has to be like, basically, it has to be perfect before I launch it. But, like, again, take imperfect action, right? Because for a lot of us, later always becomes never.
Totally.
Like, like, so you might as well just do it. And like, I know for sure, because that's exactly what happened to me during the pandemic. When I wanted to do a podcast, someone said that to me, and I did. I started it. I just did what I could. It was totally not perfect at all. I just put it out there, and it was kind of scary to publish it, like,
Totally.
you did it. If I press publish, it's out there, like,
There's no
it's
turning
on it's on
back.
Spotify. Yeah, it's like, oh, here we go. But hey, it's okay. Like, it's out there. It's out there. But then just share. Even in the podcast, I shared, this is imperfect. I know it's not going to be the best. I'm not going to have tons of followers and listeners right now, but this is just the first step. You just got to keep going, and you learn and get better as you go along, and you're just going to continue to get better. And guess what? By the time you happen to be popular, then they're gonna be like, "Wow, she came out with like 500 episodes already,"
It took
But it's
500
just,
for one to go viral.
yeah, exactly. But
Right?
that's how a lot of these celebrities now, if you really take a deep dive in their studies, like, they've been around. Like, for instance, for me, it's Joe Coy. Like, Joe Coy's been around for a very long time as a comedian, and only now people are starting to see his stuff just because of one Netflix special.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it took, that one Netflix special. But he's been funny.
He's
It's not like he wasn't
yes.
unfunny. All of a sudden he's funny. Now he's on Netflix. He's been funny, and he's been working on it, and he continues to get better. Now he's doing all these things. And that's an example. But we think that stuff like that's like an overnight success, but that you don't know the
Yeah.
backstory. Like how Oprah was turned down at 21 years old. Like I think she was fired. But
Hmm.
now all people see is just this conglomerate of Oprah now, like, but they don't know what happened when she was thinking about taking some action and she failed
Right.
at some point. So, but you just got to do it. Like you said, just do it. Just do it and
Yeah.
keep going. Be able to be ready to be, you know, able to handle and taking in the criticisms. That's why I always promote with my clients is a strong mindset, to have a very strong, resilient mindset, strong will, strong grit, to be able to handle these pressures from society that you will be receiving. You're going to
Yeah.
have them. You're going to have the negative feedback. You're going to have all these things being said about you. But, when you actually have that coming to you, that actually means you're doing something right. If you're getting negative feedback from somebody, you have
Yeah.
a critic.
Totally. And people are more like, I feel like there, for every person that wants to say something bad publicly in a comment or something, there's probably 10 to 100 people who are never going to say how great you make them feel or how helpful you are. And so I always like to just, if I listen to a podcast or I see something on Instagram, I try to make it a point to like leave a positive comment, because
Hmm.
it's just not something that we're so quick to judge, and we're so quick to make negativity in the world, and we're not
Hmm.
as quick to share positivity. And that's the thing too, is like the comparison that we make with
Hmm.
other people. So I was on a podcast yesterday, so incredibly produced. They had their producer on with us. He would like share screen. We would go back and forth between views. It was live. It was streamed on all these platforms. It was just like the gold standard that I've seen personally. And I told him, I was like, gosh, my podcast feels like a grass shack compared to this. And what I'm realizing is like the only person who's comparing is you. Nobody else is
Yeah.
saying, wow, Pua, your podcast is not as polished as that one. I don't think anybody says that. They just want the content, they just want the value. They don't care
Hmm.
what it looks like. So if there's
Hmm.
any sort of comparison going on, like, let it be there, because we'll always compare. It's human nature, but don't let it
Yeah.
stop you. And I would say,
Hmm.
too, the people you're comparing yourself to, let yourself be inspired by them instead. Let that be your goal,
Yep.
right? Learn
Yeah.
from them instead of being like, well, they're already doing it and I can't do it because mine's
Yeah.
not as good. I can say that it's super
Yeah.
easy and it's much more challenging to like build that muscle, but it's worth building, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just naturally, we're drawn to some negative news, especially like in mass media. There's something about it that draws our attention, and we should be giving more praise and acknowledging more positive things. That's why if you ever pay attention to like news stories, like if you watch a broadcast, they might start off with a headline that's negative, like something that grabs your attention, and they'll probably end with something very nice and light and funny, so like a cute kitten
Yeah.
at the end, because they want to lead you off in a good note. But then the main body of that broadcast was negative news in the media. But it's important to pinpoint those things because those are the things that matter. Like if you take a whiteboard that's completely clear and you stare at it, and the white represents all the good that that thing or person is, and for some reason there's a little black mark on that whiteboard, everyone's going to stare at that black mark. They just focus on that black mark, but they totally forget all the white around it that represents all the good. The black represents something negative, something bad. So we always do that, and those are the people that put comments on the board.
Mm.
And you have, like you said, that's their perception, that's their translation, their interpretation of what they heard or saw. And you just have to take that with a whole bunch of salt, not even a grain of salt. You gotta have to pour salt on that sucker. But when you do that, it's just when people express themselves, it's just a reflection of who they are, their mindset, their upbringing, their conditioning, growing up, their belief systems, and they're imposing it on you in the form of a comment. And you just should take that, and sometimes you might actually get something positive from it. You just transmutate it into something positive you can use for fuel, right? But we all are very unique, and we shouldn't compare, because even in business, there are these two things where you find what's called your USP. So your unique selling point or your unique selling proposition. What sets you apart from everybody else that's doing the exact same thing you are? And then there's this other thing called your 1% uniqueness factor. So what is that 1% of you that does separate you from everybody else? And we all should know what that is. We need to find that out. If anything, if that's something we should do before we, do any action, it should be at least that.
Mm,
What makes us totally different from everybody else out there in the world and even in Hawaii? Luckily, I found that out for myself, and I already know that when I'm in this journey, I'm not here to compare at all with anybody. If anything, I want to work with everybody in my field. I don't see any cutthroat mentalities anywhere. I don't see any competition anywhere. There are tons of people that need us right now. There are tons of people that need what we have to offer, and we should be working together. We should promote each other. We should uplift each other. We should help each other. We should, collaborate with each other and just serve a greater community out there because that's why we're here. We're here to be as a collective. And, that doesn't mean all those negative things won't happen. They're going to happen. But if you have that right mindset, then you're basically immune to it, unless you have a really bad day that day. But,
we all have
but
those.
yeah, so yeah, we're greater in numbers and we should love and support each other and do what we can to help each other grow, as a collective, as
Yeah.
a state, as a people. Yeah.
I love that. I think that that is a beautiful note to end on. I would love for you to share how people can get more of you, how they can connect with you, and anything that you are excited to share with our audience today. If you have anything that you want to guide people towards, feel free to share.
Yeah, so one, you can come to my website. It was finally, there's a big backstory behind the website, but you definitely can go to the website. It's kaizenfitnesshawaii.com. So kaizenfitnesshawaii.com, that's one word. And that's kind of like the main hub for everything. So anything that's upcoming, that's going to happen, whether it's the program that I'm working on and just even podcast stuff, then just check it out and news and resources for people. Then yes, I do have a podcast too. It's called the Kaizen Fitness Podcast, and it's also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc. And I'm just putting out there. I would love you to be a guest as well on that one.
Yay!
Yeah.
Accepted.
So yeah, see, you guys heard that. So so you got proof that she's gonna do it. And then just, yeah, follow me on my Instagram, my Facebook pages. It's referenced on the website. You can just search for me. You can just search my name, Jedd Ramos, or Kaizen Fitness Hawaii on Instagram and Facebook. I'm still debating on TikTok. I'm probably going to do it. I'm working on a YouTube page as well. But other than that, I'm just excited for all these other projects that I'm doing with collaborations with different people. And you can see that in the social media sites to stay updated. So, yeah, that's it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing today, for doing what you do. You are creating a beautiful, positive ripple effect in the world. And I just want you to know that it doesn't go unnoticed. And I'm personally grateful that that energy is out here, and keep going. Keep me posted. I'd love to support you and share when I can.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for having me. You're awesome podcast. Seriously, awesome podcast. I don't know. Don't worry about that high production one. Like, this is awesome. You're great. Your energy is awesome. I love how you ask questions too, and I feel at home too. So even your background, I feel like I'm at home. So
Awesome. Oh, yeah. Everybody can just relax in this very
yeah,
curated space. No,
yeah.
thank you
So
so much.
yeah, thank you so much, and hopefully we can do it again.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.